Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Sally Ann Raymond, author of The Son I Knew Too Late, a guide to help you survive and thrive. And Sally and I are going to be talking today on a topic of suicide prevention, effective strategies for saving young lives. Welcome, Sally Ann.
Thank you so much, Myrna. It's a pleasure to be here. It really is.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here as well. I love people that, turn tragedy into purpose. And this is exactly what you're doing. And, the very last interview that I had where my guest lost a son, she made the statement that God does not waste a tragedy. So I'm bringing it forward to this conversation. So I'm glad that God did not waste your tragedy. So let me introduce you to our audience and then we'll get right in.
All right.
All right, excellent. So Sally Raymond is a mother, psychotherapist, speaker, and new author. She is a long-time, full-time psychotherapist in practice for over 30 years, working with severely mentally ill, autistic, and developmentally impaired youth, as well as individuals and couples in crisis, helping them to overcome their issues and improve their lives, relationships, and prospects. Sally's firstborn son, John, committed suicide. Instantly, Sally became her first client to grieve and also to seek what she obviously missed that took a superstar to suicide. That insight forced her to write his stories in a way that would help others survive what John hadn't. The Son I Knew Too Late, a guide to help you survive and thrive, does just that by revealing what's been hidden and unknown that keeps every life on track and worth living. So, Sally, I love these inspirational stories. I love speaking to people that have risen above, heartfelt tragedy. Because, there's big tragedy and there's small tragedy, and there's no worse tragedy than having to bury your child. And, um, but you're right. You mentioned to me before we started recording that you couldn't survive that, and God has rebuilt you to a new person. So that we can catch up our audience, as you reflect, because you're talking about things that you've missed, as you reflect on John's life, can you share his story and let us know what you think you missed that caused him to commit suicide?
Absolutely, Myrna. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
I was just a naive mom back in the day when I had him. He was my firstborn. He was, he did nothing that Dr. Spock's book said he was supposed to. He was, instead of the terrible twos, he had the terrible ones. At two, I was passing a gas station and he was behind me in his car seat, and I heard him go, Texaco.
Wow.
And I'm like, no 2-year-old is supposed to read. And then
Wow.
I, uh-oh, that's what's wrong. He's smart. Until then, I thought he was nuts.
Yes, genius. Yes, they do give trouble because they're bored.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, their way, he was so far beyond me, Myrna. I didn't even register on the Richter scale. At
Mhm.
7 years old, he was giving me 45-minute debates on why he didn't need to make his bed. And he was winning. He was winning. And that meant I was going to end up under the fig tree in Santa Barbara as a homeless person, because he was going to probably take over as head of household in the next year and I was going to be gone. And so I had to do something. And so he forced me to go back to school. And I had been a C student in high school, but with a genius, I couldn't, I had to do something. And that's all I could think of to do. So I went back to school
Mhm.
And the first classes I took, I was working full time. I was a single parent and raising my kids and all that. And I came back after two classes and I had a B plus and an A plus, and I was in heaven. And I walked in and John was right there. And I said, John, you won't believe what I got. And he said, what did you get? I said, I got an A plus and a B plus. And he looked at me like I died. He
What?
looked at me, he was so disgusted.
With the
He
B
looked,
plus?
yeah. And he said, you got a B. And then I ended up in the fetal position on the couch while he's singing and dancing around the coffee table in front of me, singing, Mom is a bee, Mom is a bee. And I'm like, oh no, I can't do this. I can't get another bee.
Wow.
I was going to lose all credibility. And so,
Right?
because of him, Myrna, and only because of him, I never got another B. And so
Mm-hmm.
I graduated, the C student graduated with highest honors because, not because I was smart, but because I was afraid of another negative evaluation from him.
Wow. 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 Mhm.
Uh, and so, we also had his little brother who thought he was stupid because everyone next to John looked stupid. Honestly, we all did.
Mhm.
And that's another story that you don't write in the book, but it's an incredible story of him also transforming his life and his entire self-esteem from a loser, a stupid, blah blah, in special ed, and he ended up in Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
Um,
wow. That's their second son.
yeah, the dumb one. Um,
Right. So yeah, I mean, you shared in your bio that that's probably why you missed that he committed suicide because he was
no,
so
he
yeah,
was doing too well, Myrna.
right.
He was succeeding beyond all measure. All I saw was a rocket ship going straight to the skies, and
Wow.
I didn't realize he was hollowing out as he went up. I couldn't see it. All I saw was this little superstar. At 14, he was in calculus at UCSB, getting the top grade of out of 250 regular college students every quarter, and then going into Carnegie Mellon at 16 in theoretical math. And in 4 years, he had both his bachelor's and master's awarded simultaneously.
Wow. So
That's
you think
what.
that that was the problem because he was, what do you think is the problem? Why would somebody be unhappy or what? Yeah, tell us before I guess.
Okay.
What
All right.
happened?
Well, there were new age, something critical happened to in our lives that demoralized him.
Mm,
At his birth, Myrna, I had never had a baby before. And he was crying all the time. And the doctor said, oh, he's got colic. And
mm,
so he kept treating him for colic and it didn't help. And he just cried and cried and cried. And the doctor said, it's just going to last 3 months. And at 3 months, it'll be over. And at 3 months, he was still crying so hard. And I was out of my mind with worry and fear and up all night trying to help him. And I called the doctor and he said, well, maybe it's the 4 month colic or the 5 month. And I went, I just hung up on him. And I was
mhm.
so mad. And I called and I got another appointment that day. And the doctor was examining him and he felt right here around his collarbone. And he said, oh, look, feel this. He's got a broken collarbone.
Oh, wow.
And so all the times I tried to pick him up to soothe him, or
You were
every
hurting
time
him.
he moved his body, he was hurting himself. And that was why he was crying. And it was never diagnosed. And I didn't pick it up.
Mm,
And it was already healing. But at the same time, he learned he couldn't trust me.
mm,
And from that time on, Myrna, when you tried to go to touch him, he'd shrink
right,
away. He would
right.
and there was
Mm,
nothing I could do. And at 10 years old, I finally told him what happened. And he
mm,
said, well, it's good to know where I got it, but what do I do about it? And I said, I honestly don't know. But
mm,
the first thing you must know is that it's not who you are. It's because of what happened. Is that's just a reflex from what happened, but it isn't who you are. But
mhm.
I was only a mom then. I didn't know what to say. you know.
Right.
And so, and then at 3, he was molested.
Wow.
And even though I put that guy in prison, um, I mean, actually, John did with his testimony, he still felt he felt
Yeah.
such shame. And I tried to get him to a psychologist, and his father wouldn't allow it, and this on and on and on. And so he had took some real hits early on. And then he started he was trying to prove he was worthy. I can
Mm,
see how that when I look back, I see that everything he did was to prove that he was a good person. He was worthy. He mattered. He was trying to overcome these things.
right.
But down deep, they really demoralized him. And we don't know the issues that each of us have as we grow. The issue changes because we have to grow it through it. That's how we grow through things from the inside out. And nobody ever has addressed that. And when I went back to college and when I was in psychology, we were talking, they were starting to teach us about Erik Erikson's 8 ages of man, where there's this core issue at each new age that we have to move in and through. And if it goes well, then we become more resilient. But if it goes poorly, then we get demoralized and we just lose ground. And so he was being undermined in these ways that I couldn't tell because he looked like he was doing great,
Yeah.
but he wasn't.
Outside. Yeah.
And how many of us have taken hits along the way that have, that sit there and burn at us and eat us alive, but we put on a good face and we do the best we can and we try to overcome and all that. But with him, he was being hollowed out little by little,
Mm,
trying to prove he was worthy. And
mm,
so I didn't see it, but I sure did. After he died,
mm.
everything. I mean, I was demolished, and
Wow.
I had to
How
find
old
out.
was he? How old was he when he committed suicide?
He was 5 days after his 23rd birthday,
Ooh, very young.
and
Wow.
yeah, he had just been he'd hit a crisis at work, and he was really loving his work, and they had moved him to a new department, and they thought he thought he had failed. And he
Mm,
couldn't,
mm,
he kept saying, "What have I done wrong?" They kept saying, "Nothing, you've done nothing wrong." But he didn't believe them. And he
right,
thought he failed. And for a boy who never got a B,
right.
that was a catastrophe. And then he called the wrong person for help, and the person just said, "You're going to be fine in the morning." And he hung up on him.
Ooh, wow. So, because of the issue with you not being able to suit him as a child, did that not allow him to talk to you with his problems, or did he ever? Because you said you didn't see it, but obviously he didn't share it. Do you think
He
that's
did,
why?
well, his father made him basically shut him down and said,
Mhm.
"You just deal with it."
You're a man, be a man,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, be a man,
Yeah.
and you don't talk about these things. You deal with it. It's your problem. But
Wow.
and but so he felt we couldn't talk about it,
Wow.
and then he wouldn't talk about it. After a while, he would not.
Mm,
And and I tried to send him. After I divorced my husband, I tried to send him to other people, but by that time he was just not he was not going to hear it. And he was trying to basically be the kind of boy his father was trying to teach him to be.
be a strong man, be a man.
Yeah. Be a man, deal with it, just keep going, and don't feel.
Yeah.
And it and stuff. And so he was trying to prove he was worthy. And that's what really drove him to such excellence, I think. But in
Wow.
the meantime, I've had to learn the hardest way possible the various things that we parents, we as children too, because we have things happen to us and we bury them and we keep going, but they aren't gone.
Yeah.
They aren't gone. They're affecting us whether you know it or not. And if you don't know what it is or what should be happening, you are at a deficit.
Wow.
And
Well, I know
that,
words here because this is new information to me. Right. Wow. Yes, as parents, as yeah, a lot of times, you can see the depression. But a lot of times, like for instance, when you hear people like Robin Williams and you hear, the guy that was on Ellen's show that was had everything that he, needed and a star and a wife and kids and then they commit suicide. Those are the ones that you're shocked because they don't show but
Right.
something is in at them on the
Yes,
inside.
right.
Yeah.
And so me as his mom, I was just watching this little superstar, his little rocket ship, and I didn't see what was going on inside, and he wasn't sharing. But
Wow.
if I had my book, I would have known. I would have seen these are the issues that is driving him to excel beyond all belief. And it's
Mm,
really because he doesn't feel like he's whole, that he's good. He
right.
doesn't feel worthy. He feels shame. He feels guilt. He's feeling all these things, and they keep undermining all that he would accomplish. They negated it, and he
Mm,
wasn't really dealing with the issues. But if someone had only been able to see and understand these issues, it would have changed everything. And I believe most of us want to believe our kids are doing well. And our kids want to show you that, yeah, yeah, we're good. But, and so they fake it, and they don't want to talk about it themselves. They don't want to deal with it either. It's something painful. But we need to be able to identify these things. And that's what I had to find out the hard way.
right.
And that's what I'm putting in the book, along with John's stories at each age, a story that just
Mm,
shows exactly what was going on for him, and then when you read what should have been happening and how that could have changed things, then you as the reader know better than I do and better than John did to
mhm.
know what needed to happen and how you could write those issues up and neutralize the issue and help them thrive throughout all their life. And we can do it to ourselves as well. It's
Wow.
really, really important. And no suicide prevention book has ever talked about this.
Wow, that's amazing. So share with us a couple of them. Most people, when they have a problem, they say to go to talk therapy, and you're a psychotherapist. Does what I know there's also the EFT and those type of therapies. So does these therapies help?
Yes, they do. They do help because a lot of the problems are nonverbal. We don't know how to verbalize them. We don't know how to handle them. And so EFT and PTSD, work on PTSD, these go beyond words to eye movement desensitization therapy. Those things really work on the cellular level where the feelings and experiences are being held in our body.
Mm,
It's not up here. It's in our body, and our body gets cued by triggers, something like a color or a sound, a song, something can trigger an association with a trauma, and all that we're holding down in our bodies can reflexively just vomit out and overwhelm you, and you don't know what it is. You think it's in what's in front of you, but it's really not. It's something, this trauma from the past, that is erupting out. And
okay.
if we're not able to identify, no, it's this instead of something in front of us, we're going to overreact and do something stupid like suicide.
Wow. Yeah. Right.
And
So suicide, I know you've got some statistics, but I mean, and basically our topic today is effective strategies for saving young lives. I think that the most, you know, the generation that suicide is affecting more are the youth,
yes.
like John's age, 23 or maybe. So why do you think that? the kids, from your research, are choosing that path?
I don't think it's as much a choice as the fact that they get overwhelmed and they don't know how to deal. They
Mm,
aren't being given the resilience throughout life. We need some stress in our lives to grow. When
right,
everything's fine, you're not learning a lot.
right, right,
It's
right,
only
right.
when the wave crashes and things get tough that you have to actually build new uh, techniques and tools within yourself to grow. So
Mhm.
some stress is really important so that they don't just hit this littlest thing and go, belly up.
Right.
But we aren't doing that very well. And they also need to know what the issue is they're dealing with at the moment. Because then can self-select what works and what doesn't work if you know what it is.
Mm,
If you
right,
know what it is, you have power. You
right.
have choices. You can absolutely save your own life, but
Mm.
you also can save others. And I have saved a number of people's lives, and I'm very proud of that. I've got over 29,000 sessions. I've lost nobody yet.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
And
Well, because
and I
you understand. I mean,
and
you go to the roots and you understand. Like you said, you've been a psychotherapist for, 30 years. You've had also, it's not just something you're reading in a book. You've been
no,
through it, so you can help others. But I still don't understand why the young people are choosing suicide in the 20th century. I mean, people have gone through the Great Depression, and people in the olden age, men were marrying and they're teenagers and being stressed and looking after their wives and their children and all that. And they didn't choose that route. So do you think it's something that is happening? I know a lot of people think that the reason that suicide has gone up is because of social media, but I don't think you mentioned anything about social media with John's situation. Um, uh, I just don't understand. You're right. It's not a choice, but why are they thinking about it? There's also the term suicidal ideation where you're saying, I'm just going to kill myself. And they talk about it. And then one day they actually do it. So, yeah. So, if I were to ask a direct question, or what are some of the pain points that make, people in crisis contemplate taking their own lives? Because people have been in crisis for 6,000 years. Why
no,
have people taken their lives now?
yes,
Right.
yeah. Right now, I think that we have not been teaching our children sufficiency skills. We aren't teaching them how to learn.
Mm,
We aren't teaching them how to get along. We're not
mm,
teaching them how to communicate in ways that are, talk, say critical things in a way that people can appreciate and accept. We are not teaching them how to get along with their own bodies and their own emotions.
mm.
We Those things used to be taught as a matter of course back in ancient Rome and Greece. And,
Okay.
rhetoric, how to speak and speak powerfully, how to make a difference, how to matter. All these things are communication skills, how to listen and really hear people. That's where the gold is. But we aren't teaching that. So no wonder schools have dropped all that out to teach science, technology, stuff like that, math, blah, blah, blah. But
Right,
they're not teaching the human arts
right.
that help a society cohere and feel good about it. And so each person is being left and stranded by our social, our modalities and our schools. And it's creating a nightmare. And they're giving up their hope. They're not finding their way. They're not thinking they matter. They're not feeling good about themselves. They end up bullying people instead of telling people I'm hurting. I'm being persecuted, or I'm hurt, whatever's going on. They're not talking about, they're acting it out.
Right.
They're becoming sociopathic in this in at
Right.
doing it. And then the poor kids that the sociopaths attack get completely demoralized and they don't know any other way out. And there's no help for them. Nobody's saying that's wrong. Nobody's stopping, saying you're not going to do this. We're going to stop you from doing this. You're going to get help. You're not going to be able to do these kinds of things because it's wrong. We aren't being effective. We are not being effective, and our kids are losing their ways. They
Yeah.
are.
Well, that is a powerful message, and I wonder if anyone is hearing because it is very true. The teenagers and the youth, that generation is really, really struggling right now. And
Mhm.
you're right. It's the schools are not doing an effective job. I remember, thinking that I need to have a life skills school at some point in time because you're right. The schools are not teaching the things that make people, right. They're just teaching the skill sets, like you mentioned, math and science and technology and how to run a computer, how to program a computer and things like that, but they're not teaching life skills.
Yeah.
And life skills, right, building up the kids' self-esteem, teaching them how to communicate. You're very right, communication. Yeah, because they're all, when they get to 14, they go in their room and close the door and they're not talking to anybody and you're not
No.
sure what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so since John died, I have identified like 8 different things that we as a society need to change. I mean, the book is really important for parents, for grandparents, and for the kids themselves to be able to shepherd their own lives and their lives of their loved ones in ways that are conscious and clear and will definitely get to success and keep them alive and keep them hopeful and keep them going on track. But beyond that, we as a society have to take responsibility for what we're doing or not doing in this case that is causing so much despair, hopelessness, and people giving up. We have to do this. And so for ever since John died, I've one of the things I identified was the fact that we're not teaching them how to communicate. So
right.
I'm invited into schools every year, and I have been doing this for 21 years for nothing, Myrna, because it's too addictive. You cannot believe what you're watching as you go in every week and see what they're where they're at. But I teach communication, listening, and speaking skills. And it's a whole body thing. It's eye contact, it's quality of voice, it's the ability to tell a story. It's the ability to use your hands, walk in front of with the people, make a difference, connect, and all that. And I teach them how to do that and how to listen and how to evaluate and say negative things in a way people say thank you. I didn't know that.
Good.
And
Yes.
I go in and it's 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks, depending on how many students. And every time I walk in, I see a sea of dead, bored eyes. And
Yeah.
8 weeks
You don't want
later, Myrna, you can't believe the light in those eyes, and all the hands are raising, and everybody is absolutely electrified, and they know they matter. They know they have skills now. They know how to use them, and they know how to make a difference. And they are so excited. And I will be out someplace somewhere having dinner, and there'll be a tap on my shoulder, and I'll look around, and there'll be this girl, and she'll say, "I bet you don't remember me." And I'll say, "Hi, Stacy." And she said, "I just wanted you to know that of all the classes I ever took in school, yours was by far the best."
Yeah.
And keeps
Hmm.
me going, Myrna. That just keeps me going because this is what the kids need. This is what they need. They don't need math. They don't need algebra. They need to get along. They need to learn how to get along and enjoy life and make a difference and know that they can succeed. And you can give them these tools. And it took 8 weeks. And I've changed it's
Right.
the easiest thing ever. And
Right.
so, I mean, I want this to go mainstream because we stopped teaching communication skills in the Industrial Revolution so
Mm.
that we could focus on math
Right.
and science.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's what's
And
destroying
job
our,
skills. Right. Job skills. Everybody. Yes. Industrial. Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's not quality of life.
communication is big in anything. It's the number one skill that we need to learn. So
Well,
what are the other seven? If you just want to touch on them, the listeners can go pick up your book, but just name them.
okay, well, the first issue in the womb, now we know because babies are sentient, they're listening, they are learning, even in the womb. They can
Yeah.
hear at 4 months
Okay.
along.
Okay.
And so in the womb and out, the first issue is trust.
Mm-hmm.
Can I trust my caregiver to
Mm-hmm.
understand me, to
Mm-hmm.
love me, to care for me, to make me feel okay when I'm hurting, when I'm hungry, when I'm tired? Can they get me? And if the answer is yes, that creates a secure child.
Yeah.
But if the answer is sometimes, that's as much as saying no. And
Right.
then you get a child that's going to be avoidant and iffy, and it's not going to, it's going to be undermined from the get-go right there.
Right.
Then the
Yeah.
second stage,
Let me respond to that one. But I've just learned that because when I was growing up, I was told that you can't spoil the child, so let them cry. And I've heard that now that no, don't let them cry because it's forming when a child cries and you respond, it's saying that you got me. I
yeah,
know that you got me. So, yes, so I wanted to touch on that before you went forward. But anyway,
no,
go ahead.
that's absolutely correct. And everybody used to say, and I was, I'm 81 years old, so I've been through all of that.
Yeah.
And they said, let the child cry,
Right. Yeah.
and at least 5 minutes. And then if they're still crying, you can pick them up. But that's 5 minutes of misery.
Right. Yeah.
And why? And they said, well, if you don't do that, you'll spoil them, and then
Right.
they'll be so spoiled, blah, blah, blah. No, they won't. They'll be
Right.
secure. They'll know you care. They'll know you're there.
Yeah.
They won't have to worry about, being apart from you because they know that you would
Coming back.
never do
Right,
that.
right, right. It's true. So it was important to put a pin on that and mention that because yes. Anyway, keep going.
Right. And so the second stage from ages 1 to 3, the whole issue is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Autonomy because they're going to start moving around and they want to get to where they're going. They have been waiting to be able to move and do something and get to all these interesting things for the longest time. And now they can crawl and they can start to think about walking and all that. And this is such an exciting thing. They can finally get to all these magical things that they were only just something they could see far away. And get to and touch them and play with them, and all that's so exciting. And if you can't, if you're stopped from doing that, if somehow or another people go, no, don't touch that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, you're going to get one, first of all, they're going to scream bloody murder, but they're going to learn I'm bad.
Mm,
I can't.
mm-hmm,
Something's wrong.
mm-hmm,
And that's shame. And that's like, I'm bad. They can't decide. It's not what I do is wrong. It's what I am is bad.
mm,
And that's
yeah.
annihilating. That's annihilating. And it's really illegitimate. You only,
Some,
animals.
and some people tell the kids, "You're a bad girl." So
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
And
they hear it.
it's
Yeah,
just like, no, you're not.
yeah.
No, never, ever, 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 ever. And
Say that.
so, and then the third stage is, let's see, let's see, I have to read this because it's a lot, girl. I
Right.
mean, it's called initiative versus guilt. And this is when you can get out beyond your parents and start to play with your little friends. And you start to learn that you can take initiative and start games and you can ask, let's do this. Can we blah, blah, blah. And if that's a yes, you're growing, you're becoming more powerful, and you're finding friends outside your own little, nuclear family. And this is exciting and really great. But if you're told, no, you can't be with them, no, you can't do this, no, don't even think about starting anything. No, you, they're going to feel what
Yes.
I do is bad. And that's going to create guilt.
Mm-hmm.
That is only going to undermine me.
Right.
And Yeah. So with John, when he was molested at 3, he was just going from the autonomy to initiative. And he was going to look for friends in a new neighborhood. And I gave him 3 doors and he went a door too far. And
Mm,
I
mm.
can't talk about it, but
No, no, that's okay.
I can't.
Right.
I,
Yeah.
I
Wow.
still can't. But and even though I put that person in prison, it didn't
Wow.
change what happened to my son.
No, you can't
How
change it.
No, and
Mhm.
and I nothing I could do. And so he carried that. And
Yeah.
and that really was demolishing. He never developed a sexuality after that. He
Mhm.
was never, he never tried to, as far as I know, he was a virgin when he died
Wow.
because he just had that part of him stopped completely. And
Okay.
so that was really hard. And this next stage is, you're going to school and the whole idea is competence.
Mhm.
Can I be successful in school? Can I learn? Can I grow? Can I, be with my peers? Can I meet and make friends? These are all really exciting things. It's social intercourse. It's just
Yeah.
absolutely really important. And if the answer is yes, it builds self-esteem. It builds the sense that yes, I can. But if nobody's teaching you school, study skills, if you're and you need them, you're going to fall. And you're
Yeah.
going to feel like, I can't. I'm no good. I
Yeah.
can't, and then they're going to be resentful. They're going
Hmm.
to be angry. They're going to act out. And they're also going to act in
Hmm. Hmm.
themselves. They
Yeah.
will, because
And
I'm
you're,
no
you're
good.
you're talking stuff that I know it's true. Because yes, one of the main things of a kids when they're going to school is friends. Do people like me? Can I
Yeah,
make friends? You know what I mean? It's very important part of development and
it
self-esteem. And
absolutely.
kids that are going in the corner there and nobody wants to talk to them, or the ones that are being bullied, they carry that for the rest of their lives.
They
The rest.
really do. And they feel helpless and no good. And it has such it just squashes all that could be for no reason, for
Yeah,
no reason. And so this is really what I'm just so very passionate about because we are doing so much damage by letting bullies bully.
yeah,
What is the matter with us? Why are we letting these people, these kids who are just immature,
yeah.
out like this when it's wrong? If they're just telling us they have a problem, well, let's deal with your problem instead of you foisting it on other people.
Other people, yeah, it creates a lot of damage, right?
Mhm.
Anyway, okay.
So anyway, that's those are 3. Then of course, when you get to puberty, the whole idea is who do I belong to? Who
Hmm.
am I? Who do I, who are my people?
Hmm.
Who can love me? Who will be my friends forever? These are really important. And so it's identity versus confusion. Because if you can't find your people and bond, you're an outcast.
Wow. And we thought that parenting was just hugging and kissing, right? We didn't know that was all this.
No, but this is what's going on inside of them. You see, we don't
Yeah.
see it, and
Wow.
they can't talk about it because they don't know either. But
Right.
if we know these things, then we know what to lead to. We know how to help them, and we know how to avoid the negatives.
Right.
But if you don't, we can't, and so, yeah. And so then
Doing
there's,
good work. You're
yeah,
doing good work, Sally, because I'll tell you something. I'm glad that I'm sharing your work with the world. Because where do you stop the flow? You start from the source. And the source is childhood. The source
yes,
is what's going on when they graduate from school. They're walking across the stage and they're getting a diploma. But what have they what is going into the world? And there's
yeah,
a lot of broken kids that are going into the
no,
world. And that's
absolutely.
why they're not successful. They might be successful in a job, but they're not successful in lives because they've got all these things that are, yeah, life skills that
And
are
also,
right.
yeah, absolutely. Life skills. And also in schools, we are concentrating too much on the normal curve. That creates artificial competition.
Mm.
And I think it's become very toxic. I think it's too much competition. I think we need more cooperation and unity. And
Mm.
we can do it. It's the simplest fix ever. All we go is from, a normal curve, grading on the curve to grading according to criterion reference, which is means you just get graded for the how well you did. And so everybody can get A's if they work, do the work. Why
Mm.
not? Why not?
Okay.
And
I
so
can't
when
comment on that one because I don't know anything but that. But yes, okay.
uh, but my son, he was the superstar in school, and he was the kid everybody loved to hate. He
Mhm.
was teased, he was put down, oh, he was treated horribly. And when he got to Carnegie Mellon, he was in Carnegie at 16. And so
Smart
he was
boy.
really, yeah, but he was the youngest, and those guys they had no guilt at all about just
Yeah.
decimating him to the
Yeah.
best of their ability because he was the one getting the A and they were going to take him out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. We got a lot of work to do to fix our kids and fix our society. That's
yeah,
amazing. So what are we at now? Seven? What's the last one?
well, the last one is called, well, actually, there's two where there's generativity, which is where you're at. And it's called, that's the longest. It's starting at about 24, 25, whenever you get out of school and you have to make a living. And the
Mhm.
whole thing is about generativity. It's like making a difference, being there for your family, being there for your work, being part of a group, up leveling in your career, and feeling really good about yourself and doing things that you're proud of.
Okay.
And if you're not feeling generative, you feel isolated
Mm.
and lonely and deficient
Okay.
and negative. And how many do we find of that? My Uncle Jerry was a perfectly happy, he was the most incredible example of someone who was deficient, had really done everything wrong. He'd made some poor choices and he was just miserable and nothing could change it. Nothing. And it was so sad. And then the last stage is called integrity versus despair, because now your life is run. You've gone all the distance. You can't change anything anymore. And either you're going to feel integrity, where you feel like, it was worth it. I did a great job. I made my mistakes. I learned from them. But you know what? Altogether, it was worth everything was worthwhile. And I feel great about myself. Or you could feel despair, bitter, resentful, angry, and it's too late. And
Mm.
there's nothing you're going to do, and you're going to be terrified of what's going to happen next. But
Mm.
if you have integrity, you're going to feel at peace. Like,
Mhm.
I'm good.
Okay.
I don't have to worry.
And what age do you get there?
That's usually 50s to 60s on, but I'm 81, so I'm beyond all that. I don't know what it is now.
All
I'm
right. So midlife, when you're doing the reflection. All
yeah,
right. Right.
yeah.
Okay. Got
But
it.
does that make any sense? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, of course. Normally it's when you get to 80, they're saying you're gonna do, you're gonna look back and look at the things that you've done wrong and all that. But yeah, if you're gonna
Some
do
people
in
never,
50,
some people don't get that old.
that's true. That's true. You're right. Yeah, that's really interesting. Right. And we're saying that when you get to 80, you do the rocking chair test. But you're right. A lot of people don't get there, right? Because what is the age? They're saying mid 70s or something. Okay. All right. Well, that was really good information, Sally. Really good information. And for the parents that are listening, I'm going to pick up a copy of your book and give to my daughter, and my son. They both have kids, but my grandbaby she's just turning 2. So these
Oh,
are when you've got to get these things right. She's in the stage right now where she's touching everything and putting everything in her mouth, and I know she's learning and climbing up and all that. It was really funny because we just took her to the beach, and I have this memory in my head of her, the sand in her hand, and she's staring at it, and then decides to eat it, and then she eats it, and I'm thinking she's going to say, "Oh my God, this is nasty," but she decides to eat it again. Right? We said, yeah, let her. Some people don't want to put their kids in the dirt and they don't want to put them in the sand. And you're right, and they're not learning. So the things that you're sharing are very, very important. So thank you for that.
Well,
But let's touch back on the suicide for families. So how does suicide affect the family? I know that there's a lot of guilt. What else is there? Right.
oh, there's the first thing that happens, I can attest to, is you are shattered. You don't know what your past is. You don't know what your future is. You don't know who you are anymore, because when that person who you just lost was part of a web that made you who you are. And
Yeah.
without that person, what do you know? Are you? What did you miss? How do you put yourself together? My other son, my youngest, he was 18 months younger than John, Brett, and his name was Brett. And he was in college at that time in aeronautical design engineering. And he just lost it. He had to quit. He was like, I can't focus. I can't think. I don't know who I am anymore. He had no ground left. And
Wow.
so he basically wandered in the desert for 2 semesters. He just quit, and he just had to take time off. And finally he pulled himself back, and he went and he pulled himself together. But it took it took 2 semesters before he could even feel like he could go back. And
Mm,
me, I was just becoming licensed as a therapist. As a mom, I
mm,
dissolved. I didn't have a, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I did. I don't know
mm.
anything anymore. It's like it just took the whole map of my life, and like a magic etch a sketch, it just erased it. And
Wow.
I was dead. I wanted to kill myself. But I thought, I couldn't do that to my son after, my other son.
Yeah.
But I sure wanted to. And I know people who did.
Wow. Yeah, the pain
Yeah.
is unbearable, you
The
know?
pain is
Oh,
unbelievable. You can't even, there's no description. And
yeah.
it's relentless. It doesn't stop, not for a minute. You are being crucified on and on and on. And for me, I was just getting the licensure, and I had the tools and the insights that I'd never had as a mom. And it saved my life. But it
Mm,
also it threw me out on a mission to find out what I missed.
yeah.
I had to do that. And it took 28 years to find all that out and to write the book.
Yeah.
And I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I had to do this. And there was and I had to just delve and delve and delve and delve. And I found the stories, and they would just absolutely demolish me, because they were not the stories I originally thought.
Mm,
They were very different stories. And they all made sense of John's suicide.
wow.
They all made sense. And that was what was so painful and so important. And that's when I realized I had to write this book. And I
Right.
had Erickson's 8 ages, and I could see exactly how that worked, and at each stage. And I thought everybody needs to know this, because
Yeah.
look at the cost.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. This is important work. This is very important work. And it's important work for people that are with kids right now to make sure that they're not messing up. It's important for people that have lost family members to put some closure and to understand. Because until you understand, you're going to beat yourself up all your life.
Yeah.
So it is very, very good work. And I hope that it gets into the hands of some teachers as well, because they play a role as well in shaping our kids and helping them. So I am so glad to be able to share your work with the world, Sally Ann. And I mentioned to you earlier that you look really good for your age. And you were looking really good because you're working with a purpose.
Yeah.
And that preserves you. You've got great energy, you working with a purpose, and the purpose is to save families, to make sure that nobody, fewer people have to go through what you went through
Yeah.
and
I
and
don't
to,
want
to
anyone.
help. Right,
Yeah, I don't
right.
want anyone to go through what John went through. Look at what we lost. I mean, John was not an average person. He had friends. He wasn't autistic. He was just brilliant.
Yeah,
And and we lost someone who could have really, in fact, at his grave, at his memorial, an uncle who had only met, he had never really known John at all, came up to me and he said, I met John about a year ago and we talked for 5 minutes. And he says, and I realized that here was somebody who could really save the world.
yeah.
And it just broke my heart because I thought, yeah, I think he could. But
Yeah. With his
I,
brilliance, he could have, been, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now, but with his brilliance, yes, he had something to deposit to the world. And unfortunately, the enemy took him out because
yes.
it's always the enemy, right?
Right. And
Just,
also, but yeah, I was the mom who was like, no way is he gone. No way am I going to let my son's life just dissip dissipate into nothing because he was so much that I was like, to me, he's still alive. He's teaching me, he's still teaching me every day things that are going on because of what he showed me by living and dying.
right,
And honest to God, I hope that people read the book because they'll see who he was and who you can be too. Every single person can be just as fantastic, just as brilliant. If we're just given the tools in a way that helps us sustains life and
right,
not undermines it.
right. Wow. This is beautiful. Yes, it's beautiful. Beautiful in so many levels, Sally. So yeah, one, you're keeping your son's memory alive. Two, you're completing the work that he should have done, right? So that's amazing. And God is preserving you for your mission. And I know that you mentioned that you've saved so many people. So continue to do your work. And I'm praying that God blesses you and your family. And your son, that's Brett, I think you said his name was. Yeah, and that, sustain you guys. So I totally feel you and feel your mission and yeah, like I said, I'm definitely gonna get a copy of your book. Um, and so tell our listeners where they can pick up your copy of your book, if you have a website, if you're in social media, so that they can connect with you.
Sure. I'm 81, so I'm not great at social media. I, I don't know what's better on the phone. Anyway, but I do, my book is on you can get it anywhere. It's The Son I Knew Too Late, A Guide to Help You Survive and Thrive. And that is my promise to every reader that it will help you survive and thrive. And it's not just a story. It's a teaching and it's an education it's a roadmap through life.
Okay.
And so you can find it on Amazon. You can get it on my website. My website is sallyaraymond.com. And yeah, and I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on I don't know what else.
Hey, you're doing good. And your handles are your name, Sally A. Raymond.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. So that's amazing. All right. Well, I will definitely link out to your website, link out to your book, and link out to you in social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, so I'll link out to you. Yeah, I've said it a couple of times now, but I am proud of the work that you're doing. I'm proud of the fact that at 81, you're still out there trying to save the world and trying to save others. I think you said your son has been gone now for over
Oh,
25 years, right?
oh, he died not back in 1992.
Wow.
And well, no, 1991. And so it took longer than he lived to write the book,
Right,
but
right.
it had to be good and it had to work.
But look at that. We're talking about him now, 30 years, later. So that's amazing. And in the meantime, while, you were working, you're in schools, you're doing things, you're, working on your trade, being a psychotherapist and helping families and helping people. So
Mhm.
yeah, the book is just, the bookend for your work. So yeah, so I will have a summary of our conversation on the show page, which is myhelps.us. And like I said, I'll link out to your book and your social media handles. So anyone that's listening can go out and pick up a copy and yeah, save some lives. Understand that the responsibility as a parent is deep. We have the responsibility as parents to make sure that our children, one of the things that I say, make sure your children are contributing members to society. And the way they can be contributing members to society is that they need to be emotionally healthy. So it's great that you are definitely talking about ways to survive and thrive because we don't want to survive, we want to thrive. So beautiful work, beautiful conversation. Thank you for being on the show. So as we wrap up, do you have any last words?
Not that I could talk forever, honestly, so don't do that.
Right, right. Okay. All right. Well, listen, thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life. I was speaking today to Sally Ann Raymond, author of The Son I Knew Too Late, a guide to help you survive and thrive. And in this conversation, Sally talked about, all the things she missed because her son presented as brilliant. But a lot of times we don't see the pain on the inside. And I know that we have been exposed to a lot of people that smile and laugh and then they're hurting on the inside. So, yeah, it's very important to get people to talk because when they talk, then it's a window because the Bible says, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if you get people to talk, then you can probably get an inclination. Don't stick for the silent types because the silent type, they're hiding and they're masking things. So if you learn anything from this conversation is to get people to talk, whether it's your kids, your spouse, your friends, because as they talk, then not only they release, but then you're also getting an inkling of how they're feeling, right? So, all right. So listen, thank you guys for tuning in. I love this conversation. I love presenting this kind of guest to you because we can all learn from this because life is a school. All right. So if you guys are watching on YouTube or listening, watching on YouTube, would love for you to comment, let Sally know that you appreciate her work and maybe share some stories of your own. Love the feedback. If you're listening to this on iTunes, would also love for you to, rate and review and give us your opinion. So thanks again for tuning in. Thank you, Sally, for being on the show. Thank you for the work that you do. Until next time, namaste.
Wow.